This week has brought us another diss to Trumponomics, specifically the projected economic growth rate under the Trump administration. You may remember that candidate Trump promised an economic growth rate of 4%. President Trump, his team, is tamping down expectations, saying we're hoping to get to 3% economic growth, which would be a nice acceleration from where we are now. But this week, the International Monetary Fund came out and said, no, it's only going to be 2%. In fact, they even cut their growth estimate. Why did they do this? Well, they did this in conjunction, first of all, with something called an Article 4 consultation. International Monetary Fund exists to lend money to countries that need it. They do evaluations in the context of that. They make recommendations. And where they came out, after consulting a little bit with the United States leadership, is that the objectives of the Trump administration are laudable. Accelerate business growth, remove regulation, and so forth. But the specific policies that are being contemplated are not likely to actually make that happen, in part because the policies are not particularly well detailed or thought out, at least as far as the IMF is concerned. And specifically, they said, look, the problem in the United States is that economic gains are not being shared. They are going to simply the richest and only a little bit to the folks who actually spend most of the money in the economy. That has to be fixed. This is something we've talked about a lot on the bottom line. High levels of poverty in the country. Medicaid cuts under the new Senate and House health care bills will exacerbate this because Medicaid flows right into hospitals and others. And the Russia and the health care imbroglio are slowing things down. So the IMF basically said, look, we're not looking for any miracle cure. We're not expecting any acceleration. And they point out that the big problem for the economy in terms of growth rate is that the U.S. economy is actually near full employment. And economic growth is a product of the number of people who are working and the length of time that they're working and the productivity with which they're working, the amount that they're producing per hour. And with the labor force growing at a much slower rate than it has been in the past, the IMF says the only thing that is really going to drive economic growth and accelerate it is much more immigration. And one of the things the Trump administration obviously is focused on is controlling immigration, not necessarily slowing it down, but certainly controlling it. So seems to run counter to that as well. So yet another skeptic of the Trump administration's promises about future economic growth.